Password authentication. Password authentication is used in many systems for authenticating the identity of one or both peers of a connection. This paper will help you design more secure password authentication schemes using symmetric cryptographic techniques. Password authentication using symmetric techniques at page size 21 cm 29.7 cm, margin 2 cm p margin bottom 0.21 cm h1 margin bottom 0.21 cm h1. Western font family, Arial, sans-serif, font size, 16 pt h1. CJK font family, Lucida Sans Unicode, font size, 16 pt h1. CTL font family, Tahoma, font size, 16 pt h2 margin bottom, 0.21 cm h2. Western font family, Arial, sans-serif, font size, 14 pt, font style, italic h2. CJK font size, 14 pt, font style, italic h2. CTL, font size, 14 pt, font style, italic h3 margin bottom, 0.21 cm h3. Western font family, Arial, sans-serif h4 margin bottom, 0.21 cm h4. Western font family, Arial, sans-serif, font size, 11 pt, font style, italic h4. CJK font size, 11 pt, font style, italic h4. CTL font size, 11 pt, font style, italic. Password authentication by Henrik Hellström, Stream SEC, 2004. All rights reserved. Password authentication is used in many systems for authenticating the identity of one or both peers of a connection. Most schemes that are used today are trivially insecure, even if they employ cryptographic algorithms such as hash functions and encryption functions. This paper will help you spot some common weaknesses and design more secure password authentication schemes using symmetric cryptographic techniques. General advice: each password-based authentication system is, without exceptions, vulnerable to certain attacks if you use weak passwords. Conversely, using a strong password, or rather passphrase, will not do you any good if you use it for weak or seriously compromised authentication systems. Some general advice are: use passwords and passphrases you can remember. Having to write your password down, or store it in a file somewhere, is rarely a good thing. Use long passphrases with several sentences rather than short obscure passwords with non-alphabetic characters. Remembering a secure password with 20 letters including digits and special characters is for most people a lot harder than remembering a 128-letter passphrase consisting only of intelligible sentences. Use the same favorite passphrase for each service you know employs a secure password authentication scheme. Having to remember a multitude of passwords for different services is bad. You should use your brain for something more productive. At the same time, you must remember that most services unfortunately do not employ secure password authentication schemes. If you use the same passphrase for both Service A and Service B, your access to Service A might become compromised if Service B is or becomes compromised. If both services had used secure password authentication schemes, this would not have been a concern. The problem: Alice wants to prove to someone she believes to be Bob that she is Alice. Alice wants to do so without disclosing any secret information to Eve, who is eavesdropping on the conversation, or Mallory, who has a tendency to impersonate Bob and Alice in order to trick them into revealing their secrets. Furthermore, Alice wants to use the same method of authentication for proving her identity to Sue, and she don't want to put her own, Bob's or Sue's security at risk in case either Bob or Sue becomes compromised. Cryptographic primitives hash functions. A cryptographically secure hash function will transform input of any length to a fixed size output code, known as the digest of the input. The hash function has the following properties. It is computationally infeasible to find any data that hashes to a given arbitrary digest. In other words, a cryptographically secure hash function cannot easily be inverted but is computationally one-way. This property is also known as primary preimage resistance. It is computationally infeasible to find two different inputs that hash to the same digest value. A cryptographically secure hash function is collision-free. This property is also known as secondary preimage resistance. As a consequence of these two properties, a hash function can be used for the following purpose: let TA and TB be two inputs and let DA and DB be the respective digest values of these two inputs. If DA equals DB, then it is secure to infer that TA equals TB. Stream SEC tools usage. The following code calculates the SHA-1 digest of the contents of the ANSI string A text. The SHA-1 digest is a 20-character string possibly consisting of non-printable 8-bit characters. Uses STSEC utils, STSHA1, L digest equals digest string, ha-sha1a text. Example 1, fair but non-secure usage. Alice sends the digest DA of her secret password TA to Bob. Bob looks up Alice in his user data table, gets the stored value DA and verifies that DA equals DA. The actual value of TA is not revealed during this process. Example 2, attack. Eve apprehends the value DA sent by Alice in example 1. Eve connects to Bob and sends DA. Bob is tricked into believing that Eve is Alice. This is known as a replay attack. Example 3, attack. Harry registers a large number of personalities with Bob's service. Later Harry is able to steal Bob's user data table. Harry performs a query on the data table and finds out that the value DA for Alice is identical to the value DB for one of Harry's fake personalities. Harry is able to infer that Alice's secret password TA is identical to the password TB for his corresponding fake personality. Example 4, limitation. It is not uncommon that distributors of open-source software are publishing the MD5 digest of each file together with the file itself. This scheme provides very little security due to the general properties of hash functions. If you are given a pair ADA, you are able to verify that DA is in fact a valid digest of TA, but there is no way for you to verify that TA and DA have not both been replaced by someone other than the distributor. Anyone is able to generate a valid MD5 digest of anything. Keyed hash functions. A keyed hash function is a hash function with the additional property that a valid digest, also known as a message authentication code or MAC, can only be calculated by someone who knows a specific secret key. The most common type of keyed hash function is HMAC. The HMAC function works with all MD4 type hash functions, such as MD5 and the ripe MD and SHA family of hash functions, and operates by hashing the input twice and mixing in the key material with different paddings each time. Keyed hash functions use symmetric keys, which means that both the sender and the recipient of a message must establish the same key. Asterisk, let TA and TB be two inputs, KA and KB two keys, and let MA and MB be the respective MAC values of these two inputs. If MA equals MB, then it is secure to infer that both TA equals TB and KA equals KB. Stream SEC tools usage. The following code calculates the HMAC SHA-1 value of the contents of the ANSI string A text. The MAC is at most an A-length character string, at most the same length as the digest length of the underlying hash function, possibly consisting of non-printable 8-bit characters. Uses STSEC utils, STSHA1, LMAC equals HMAC string, HA1 a key a length a text. Example 5, fair but non-secure usage. Alice sends the MAC MK of the string Alice and her secret password TA as key to Bob. Bob looks up Alice in his user data table, gets the stored value MK and verifies that MK equals MK. The actual value of TA is not revealed during this process. Example 6. Attack. Eve apprehends the value MK sent by Alice in example 1. Eve connects to Bob and sends MK. Bob is tricked into believing that Eve is Alice. Example 7. Failed attack. Harry registers a large number of personalities with Bob's service. Later Harry is able to steal Bob's user data table. Harry performs a query on the data table but is unable to find any MAC values that are identical, since the HMAC is collision-free and Bob enforces the rule that the usernames must be unique. Example 8. Limitation. Using a keyed hash function for proving integrity and authenticity of public files is rarely an option. Firstly, a HMAC uses a symmetric key. This means that both the sender and the recipient are able to generate a valid MAC of any given input text. If Alice, Bob, and Carol all share the same secret HMAC key, there is no way for Alice to tell if a given MAC value was calculated by Bob or by Carol. Secondly, a keyed hash function will not provide any security benefits over a regular, unkeyed, hash function unless the key is kept secret. If you publish a pair AMK, no one who does not know the key K will be able to verify that MK is in fact a valid MAC of TA. Other concepts salt and nonce. The distinction between a salt and a nonce is floating, but is mentioned here for clarity. Both are generated in a way that is designed to make them unique within context, e.g. by a cryptographically secure random generator such as Yarrow. Both are used in such way that they do not have to be kept secret but can be transmitted over unprotected channels. Both are typically mixed with secret material during some sort of hash operation. A salt is typically used for generating a verifier value that consists of the hash of the salt and the password. The salt and the verifier are stored together at the recipient, server, side for the lifetime of the password. If not random, the salt could be the concatenation of the recipient username and the sender username. A salt is more precisely typically used for making password hashes stored in server-side user data tables unique. Confer example 4 and example 8 above. A nonce is typically used only once for a single session handshake or for a single message. If it is not generated at random, it could be a timestamp or an auto-incremented persistent counter. Nonces are typically used in challenge-response protocols to thwart attacks of the kind described in example 2 and example 6 above. Challenge-response protocols. A common way of avoiding some of the attacks outlined in the previous sections is to use challenge-response protocols. These protocols mix in random material with the passwords. Done right, this makes it impossible to generate valid protocol messages without the secret information that only the legitimate parties are assumed to possess. These protocols will only output a binary yes or no to the question, were the incoming protocol messages authentic? More elaborate protocols will in addition output a session key that is used for protecting the confidentiality and message integrity of the following bulk messages. The security benefits of using such protocols should not be underestimated, since they entail that the confidentiality and integrity of the bulk contents is closely linked to the entity authentication established during the authentication phase of the protocol. Challenge-response protocols are traditionally designed to be either 2-pass or 3-pass. 2-pass challenge-response protocols are used for authenticating the client to the server but not the server to the client. This section outlines 2 3-pass protocols that will authenticate both the client and the server to each other. Protocol number 1. This protocol is designed for situations where the speed of the network is the biggest bottleneck. Preparations. Each client entity Carol registers herself with the server entity Sue. Either Carol or Sue generates the following values. Salt Carol equals HMAC string, SHA1 real name Carol 20 real name Sue, verifier Carol equals HMAC string, SHA1 Salt Carol 20 password Carol, Sue registers real name Carol and verifier Carol. It is not important for the operation of the actual protocol if Carol or Sue generates the verifier Carol value, since Sue will not use password Carol at any point during the actual protocol. It is however important that the values that are sent between Carol and Sue during the registration phase are guaranteed to be both confidential and authentic. Furthermore, Carol should send verifier Carol rather than password Carol if she intends to reuse the same password for other purposes. It is computationally infeasible to derive password Carol from verifier Carol. The value of salt Carol must be unique. In particular, real name SU should be set to any information that will fully identify the protocol service denoted SU here, such as a full URI including protocol, host name, and path, possibly mixed with static information from SU's server hello message. Alternatively, salt Carol could be generated at random, but that would require that salt Carol is stored by SU and transmitted back to Carol during the protocol. It is assumed that if salt Carol is generated according to the definition above, both Carol and SU can independently regenerate the value at any later time. SU must keep the verifier Carol value confidential. It will typically be stored in a user data table, and if this data table is compromised, each user will have to generate new verifier values. It is important to note that it is impossible to generate new verifier values if neither of the values real name SU, real name Carol nor password Carol is changed, since verifier Carol is a deterministic function of these values. SU must consequently change real name SU if the functions described above are used and the user data table is compromised. An alternative is to use randomly generated salt values. Steps and messages. SU generates a random nonce _s. SU-Carol, nonce_s Carol generates a random nonce_c. Carol calculates verifier Carol as described above. Carol calculates temp1 equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 verifier Carol 20 nonce_s. Carol calculates response_c equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 temp1, 20 nonce_c. Carol-SU, real name Carol, nonce_c. Response_c SU looks up real name Carol in the user data table and gets verifier Carol. SU calculates response_c as described above and compares it with the value received from Carol. If the values do not match, SU aborts, resulting in the protocol output no. SU calculates temp2 equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 verifier Carol 20 nonce_c. SU calculates response_s equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 temp2, 20 nonce_s. SU-Carol, response_s Carol calculates response_s as described above and compares it with the value received from SU. If the values do not match, Carol aborts, resulting in the protocol output no. Output yes. Protocol number 2. This protocol is a variation of protocol number 1 with the difference that the salt Carol value is generated randomly and is stored in SU's user data table. The implications of this have already been discussed. Steps and messages. Carol generates a random nonce_c. Carol-Sue, real name Carol, nonce_c. Sue looks up real name Carol in the user data table and gets solved Carol, verifier Carol. Sue generates a random value challenge. Sue calculates nonce_s equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 challenge 20 real name Sue. Sue calculates temp1 equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 verifier Carol 20 nonce_c. Sue calculates response_s equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 temp1 nonce_s. Sue-Carol, challenge, solved Carol, response_s. Carol calculates verifier Carol equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 solved Carol 20 password Carol. Carol calculates nonce_s as described above. Carol calculates response_s as described above and compares it with the value received from Sue. If the values do not match, Carol aborts, resulting in the protocol output no. Carol calculates temp2 equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 verifier Carol 20 nonce_s. Carol calculates response_c equals HMAC string, ha-sha1 temp2, 20 nonce_c. Carol-Sue, response_c. Sue calculates response_c as described above and compares it with the value received from Carol. If the values do not match, Sue aborts, resulting in the protocol output no. Output yes. Other considerations. A common characteristic of both protocol number 1 and protocol number 2 is that the exclusive usage of symmetric cryptographic primitives, HMAC, makes the user data table extremely sensitive to compromise. The protocols will only provide entity authentication if Sue manages to keep the user data table both confidential and authentic. Using a salt